Now when it comes to the old school RuneScape economy, this has been a very busy month. Not only do we have two major updates coming out soon, those being Araxxor and Varlamore Part 2, but there's also just a ton of other smaller things to look at as well. Like for example, let's look at the Darok armor set. Well, sometime mid-August, the price absolutely tanked. It was holding pretty steady at around 7 or 8 mil, but overnight just plummeted by 50%, and that is due to one update, the banning of deathmatching. Now deathmatching is essentially gambling but in a PvP fight, but most of it just comes down to RNG, and using a set like Araxor was very popular, and because it's now against the terms of services as of I think a few days ago, the demand for Araxor has plummeted quite a lot. You can see the amount traded cut in half, and so has the price. Now for August, we actually did have a few new items added to the game, those being the Armageddon rewards from Deadman Mode, and they are really fascinating to look at. They're similar to League items in the fact that they are only obtainable from playing this temporary game mode. This is the first time that we've seen a Deadman Mode exclusive reward that's tradable in the main game, and their price is kind of wild. Now when they first dropped into the Grand Exchange, people clearly vastly overestimated how many people played Deadman Mode, because the first few Armageddon weapon scrolls only went for about 15 or 20 mil, but they quickly shot up to 60 mil just in the first few days. Now a week ago they made it so you could sell your Armageddon item back to the shop to get points back, so you could kind of swap them around for other items. And although it crashed right on release, from 50 mil to 35 mil, it quickly rebounded, and now every item is more expensive than before. So the weapon scrolls went up to about 70 mil a couple days ago. The teleport scroll went from 29 mil up to a peak of 54. The Armageddon rug went from about 3.5 mil and now is up to 17 mil. And the cape fabric also jumped up quite a lot, up to about 30 mil right now. All the items are quite expensive compared to League rewards. And it comes down to one main factor. These items are essentially temporarily discontinued. They're desirable because they have visible animations or visible reskins, and the quantity of them is not that high because just not that many people played Deadman Mode. On top of, there's no precedent for this, so we're not sure when the next Deadman Mode will be, whether it will have the same system. Likely it will be the same as Leagues, but we don't really know. And of course, as always, there are just a ton of players speculating on these items, driving the price upwards, but it's very peculiar, and I guess we'll have to wait and see how expensive these will get, or if they will settle down eventually. Now, one of the biggest stories from last month was how expensive commonly botted items have gotten, and that trend has continued through much of August. Looking at blood shards, they actually reached a new all-time high of 15.5 mil, which is insanely expensive. Looking at the historic price for this item, it's not even really been close ever before, and blood shards are so expensive right now. And even if there was no thieving bots, I would be somewhat surprised if blood shards hit 15 mil, except for one piece of content, and that is the Colosseum. The Colosseum is one of the best moneymakers in the game, and blood shards are really heavily used there. And because it's so profitable, it allows blood shards to be worthwhile buying even at 15 mil. It's hard to tell how much more expensive they can get, but currently it's about 3 mil per hour to continuously use a blood shard, which is absolutely ridiculous. Hardly worth using almost anywhere now, except for just the elite moneymakers in the game. The Enhanced Crystal Teleport Seed has retained its value this month. It's a bit lower, but still hovering around the 4 mil mark, insanely expensive for the exact same reason. Zolr scales have also hit a yearly high this month, going up to 237 GP mid-August. That's where they peaked, but that is still so much higher than they've been for a long time. And this really does appear to be due to just lower volumes, which I can only assume is less bots. Like if you look at even back in June, there's 40 million, 50 million traded per day. Now, it looks like it's about 20-30% less on average just from an eye test, and that has had a pretty significant effect on the price. So as we can see, there's a huge variety of items that have skyrocketed recently due to the recent bot ban wave. Today's video sponsor, Factor, also offers a huge variety of items, except these ones you can eat. Well, I guess you can eat some RuneScape items, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Factor takes all the stress out of meal planning. Instead of having to plan out my meal, drive to the grocery store, interact with people, etc., I can instead get a chef-crafted meal delivered right to my doorstep. They have a massive selection of meals to choose from with over 35 different meals each week, and it can even accommodate keto, vegetarian, and even vegan diets as well. What I really like about Factor is it's cheaper than takeout food and actually has healthy options. With how long delivery food takes in my city, it's honestly way quicker to just pop a Factor meal into the microwave or oven and have a delicious meal ready in a few minutes. As you may or may not know, snacking is on the rise, and Factor has you covered. They offer a load of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, small bites, and more. They can keep you going no matter what you're doing, even if that's 10 hours of rune crafting or 3 tick granite. Factor helps support my channel directly, and now is a great time to try Factor out as they're running a channel exclusive deal. Get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders simply by clicking the link in my description or entering the code FlippingOSRS50 at checkout, or you can even scan the QR code. Once again, a massive thank you to Factor for continuing to support my channel and sponsoring today's video. Another item, cannonballs, a very heavily botted item, is also up a lot in the last few months. I think people are speculating for sailing, but that could be a year, 2 away. Who knows how big of an impact cannonballs will really have, but they're up to 250 GP. Now another historic bodying method is white berries. These are actually also up a lot in the last few months, going up nearly 20 to 30% since June. And just a few other random ones, dragon bones also continuing their trend upwards, currently valued at 4,300 each, and green DI as well has gone up a lot. Killing green dragons honestly not the worst moneymaker now. I'm not sure what Jagex is doing or if they're doing anything, but the economy still seems to be in a pretty strong place for August. Now something that actually kind of surprised me is the price of 2 specific runes, that being the Nature Rune and the Blood Rune. Now with the new agility shortcut they added to Shyla Village, the amount of nature runes you can craft per hour, I want to say like doubled at the very least, maybe even tripled. It's so much quicker to craft nature runes. Yet, even with that change, the price of nature runes have actually started to go up, which is kind of surprising to me. I don't have an obvious answer to that. They were at their floor price pretty recently, just a few months ago, and now they're up to 137. Now, 30% increase in an item like this is actually pretty significant because anytime that they're at their floor price, they are then being mass sold to the shop just for straight up GP. Same thing with blood runes. 200 is their floor price essentially because you can sell them to a shop for 200 GP, but they're actually up to 240, which is a really good thing because instead of essentially being a 2 or 3 mil per hour direct cash generating method, people are instead buying the runes, using them, exchanging gold instead of straight up creating them. We can assume that the scythe is probably driving the price of blood runes up in anticipation of Araxxor, but for nature runes, honestly no clue. What's your guys' best guess? I don't know. Now Varlamore Part 2 has been pushed back to early fall it appears, but it is still on the near horizon and we're supposedly going to be getting a new group boss, which will be weak to Dragonbane weapons and is even introducing its own new magic-based Dragonbane weapon. So there's definitely some items that have gone up in anticipation. One of the bigger ones is actually the Dragonfire Ward, which this month alone has gone from 9 mil up to 14 mil, and over the last few months, tripling in price. Now on top of that, the Dragon Hunter Crossbow has gone up a decent amount this month, about 10-15%, I believe in anticipation for the new boss, but the lance hasn't really gone up nearly as much. So based on this, it seems like people are guessing ranged will be pretty strong there, but we'll have to see. Another item that has plummeted this month is actually the Nail Beast nails, going from about 6,000 down to 2,000 in just a few days, and you can kind of see why. If you look at the volume, it exploded, going from maybe like 5 to 10,000 in a day up to 100,000, 170,000 bought that day. Not even close, like 10 or 20 times more are being pumped into the game. Now this was due to a very small change in poll 82 that just increased the Nail Beast drops from 2 to 3 versus the previous 1. So they're literally just 2 to 3 times as common, thus their price dropped by about 2 or 3 times. Now these are used to make Sandfew serums, and because of the price drop, Sandfew serums are now at a yearly low, I think. Yeah, about under 20,000 right now for a Sandfew serum, which is quite cheap. And I'm actually kind of surprised I haven't crashed more, but I think there's some speculation that they might be useful in the new Araxxor Slayer boss, which is coming out in about a week. Now there's a variety of items I've noticed I think have gone up due to the upcoming Araxxor boss. One interesting one is the Din's Bulwark, which has gone up quite a bit this month and overall quite a bit this quarter. It had a massive spike around August 9th where it went up to like 40 mil and then dropped right back down again. I think there's some speculation that the Din's Bulwark special attack will be useful in dealing with the mobs of spiders that Araxxor is allegedly going to spawn. Now, we don't really know too many details about the boss fight. It is an RS3, so there are some mechanics that might get ported over, but also maybe not. Either way, the Din's Bulwark has been going up quite a bit this year, and especially in the last month. The Venator Bow is another item that can do AoE damage that has gone up a lot in the last few months. Now, I'm not sure if this is going up because of Araxxor. It's presumably going to be a melee fight, although we don't know for sure if it's melee only. The Venator Bow does do AoE damage and is good for taking out mobs of weaker enemies, and the Venator Bow has been on a year-long, pretty consistent drive upwards. Now, this is primarily due to the Colosseum and the Whisperer, I would say, but who knows, maybe the new boss will be another major use case. Now, the other category of speculated items for Araxxor is crush weapons. So things like the Inquisitor's Mace has gone up a lot. Just in the last 24 hours, it's jumped up by 50 mil. Another pretty popular crush weapon is the Abyssal Bludgeon. It's also up quite a bit over the last couple of months, going from 13 mil back in May up to 23 mil in August. And finally, the Amulet of Torture, which is going to be required directly to upgrade to the new Best in Slot Amulet, has also gone up a lot. Now, probably as soon as the update comes out, Tortures are going to plummet because there's just so many Zenytes in the game. I don't think the price of the Tortures is going to be very relevant, but there's no doubt that Zenytes are at an all-time high this year. Now, of course, not everything is going up. This month, there were a few big losers as well. The Elder Maul has been trending downwards ever since the buff, which is common enough. And this month, it has continued to trend downwards. It's still hovering just above 100 mil. So it hasn't fallen off a cliff or anything, but it's definitely trending downwards. Same thing with the Tunican Shadow. It has stabilized a little bit this month, but is really just continued a pretty consistent downward trend ever since May. We've talked about this a lot, but there's just so many purples that come from TOA that the Shadow is just way more common to get than other raid mega rares. Another item that's kind of gone up and down a lot this month is the Sunfire Splinter. It seems to fluctuate a lot between like 500 and 700 GP, and it really just seems to come down to the volume at the time. Now, it could either be bots or just people see a higher profit moneymaker and more people do it until the price goes down, and then once it goes down, less people do it, which causes the price to go back up, and that cycle just repeats itself over and over again. And another kind of loser this month is Dragon Claws, which have gone down to, well, they're down under 80 mil. Now, this isn't a massive drop, but they are pretty consistently dropping ever since the Burning Claws came out. Burning Claws are a pretty decent alternative in a lot of different places, and I think are stronger than anticipated. So now that Claws have a direct competitor that can be used in a lot of places, Dragon Claws have seen a bit of a price decrease. The Blood Moon Chestplate is another item that has been a bit wild. A few months ago it was only 1.5 mil, but in August it peaked at 6 mil and is now dropping down again. I just assume people are still discovering that this item is essentially a Bandos Chestplate, but way cheaper. And surprisingly, for the first time in a while, another item that has actually decreased is the oldschool Runescape Bond, going down to an affordable 13 mil, which is not much cheaper, but it has dropped a bit. In the grand scheme of things though, that just brings it back to, I don't know, June levels. It's not that significant. Yeah, God, it's so crazy still. A bond is essentially doubled this year. That's insane. Anyway guys, that's going to be it for the market analysis this month. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.